Welcome to Dysfictional, an RPG-focused podcast. I'm Ginger, and I'm really sad.
I'm Randy, and I'm really happy.
I'm Tukey, former academic, and currently being torn apart and put back together over and over again.
The random generator. Sorry.
Oh my god.
Great.
Yeah. What happened?
Oh, just had a little audience with Asmodeus.
I mean,
That's pretty cool.
Impressive.
Yeah. Campaign's over, so
Yeah.
everyone survived and is in a good place.
Yeah.
So your face did get stuck like that.
No
Just like
tragic
I
front
warned.
stories.
No, because it's currently being torn apart and put back together. Okay.
Mm.
Well, that
Anyway.
sucks.
Meh.
I'm fine.
Well, that's
Are
good.
you?
I'm great too. So
Because
Yeah.
you caused all
You
of this.
would be.
whoa. Don't bite the hand that stabbed you.
Destroys you?
No, my character will recover from this trauma. It will only take her probably like a couple of thousands of years. It's not a big deal, really, if you think about it.
It's fine. Almost everyone at least was saying, hey, just back off of this chick. She's probably going to be really traumatic for you. And you're like, nah, it's fine. I got this. And then sure enough, it's traumatic.
I just can't believe that the devil betrayed me.
Yeah, what is up with that?
Who would have seen that
He
coming?
gave you power with no consequences, and it betrays you in the end.
I just thought he cared about me,
If only someone had cared.
Yeah, no one warned me at all.
If only just anyone had genuinely cared and tried to warn you.
Yeah, there's no warning signs.
Yeah, tried to warn you over and over again about exactly what would happen.
So, Artificers, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, what are we talking about tonight, Ginger?
Not rogues, because I'm done with them forever.
I mean, me too, apparently.
Yeah,
Me
we're done with
three.
that. We're going to take a campaign break from rogues, I think. No, we do have some classes still to talk about, and maybe if we talk about things that we might want to play in the future, it'll help with all of our mutual depression. So, yeah, let's start with actually Randy's favorite class, the Artificer, even though you don't deserve it.
Oh, God, I'm not prepared. I mean, cool. The Artificer, yeah, that sounds great.
Artificer.
Well, no. Why don't I deserve it? Like,
Because you're too
fabricated-
happy, and your favorite class
But
makes
I'm
it
always happy.
makes you even more happy.
I could be in the same situation as all of you. I'd be like, I mean, it could be worse.
We want you to be sad like us.
Oh,
I mean, I'm not sad.
We want you to join us in our.
okay,
In our
fine.
sadness.
I'm sad.
Let's do the whole podcast sadly.
I'm gonna talk about Artificers.
Vicer.
Whichever way you want to call it.
Wait, oh my god, is Jack Spicer an artificer? He is.
Oh
He makes
my
God.
things.
Oh my god, I just had a breakthrough.
So, whether you call it an Artificer or Artificer, or Artificer, or Artificer, or Artificer, whichever way you want to call it.
Artificier.
Oh, I like that one too. Oh, okay, I like that one.
Artificier.
That one's fancy. They are a
Thanks.
quartercaster. I think more similar to a ranger. They're probably more similar to a ranger and sort of being a quartercaster. They don't get a lot of spells, but what they do get is magical tinkering and cool tinkering stuff like that. One of my favorite things about them is the magical tinkering. First level, they get it. It's a really cool little feature that you can add properties to non-magical objects. I actually have had a toy before. You wind it up and you let it go, and then you have the toy just yelling like baklava, baklava, like the whole time as it's going down a hallway. And there was like, the hell's that noise? And they run after it, which is cool. I also had ball bearings. I think a big common use of it is have a bag of ball bearings. There's 1,000 of them in there, and then you can make it a light source or make it sounds and stuff. Throw it down a hallway as a cool light source, or drop it down a well. See how deep it goes. Pretty cool uses of them.
Is magical tinkering kind of like the equivalent of, let's say, like Tesla just using really, really advanced science in making things that people thought were magic?
Not
No.
Like, do you see them as like a science class, or is it actually a magic element?
I'll say for Artificer,
Excuse me, Artificier.
yeah,
please.
sorry, or Artificier. I consider them to be that almost like the Thor one where it's like science and magic are one and the same. They kind of do sciencey things with mechanisms and then they do crazy magical things with it. Magical tinkering in particular, I think it feels more magic because it is just a non-magical object that they almost enchant it. But when they get to infusing items and creating items, actually their biggest contribution to the interesting aspects of the magical and science is that they have their spell focus is tools. So my Artificer was using a briefcase and almost like kind of Pulp Fiction, you have mentioned it before, and it did all of his spells on there. But you could have thieves tools, you could have a hammer, and it could do the same thing. And I think it's really cool to be like smashing a hammer, and then that's how you do firebolt, or you throw it, and then it's acid splash or something. Just really cool things you kind of do with it.
They are really cool. I admittedly have avoided them a bit because they do feel a little complicated,
Yes.
but they feel like they could be probably very satisfying and very customizable, especially if you come up with a really good, solid theme or solid idea for it. But yeah, I have not really had any experience with it. I do probably plan on it at some point, giving them a shot. But yeah, a little bit complicated, but really cool. And you already mentioned the magic tinkering. They also have infusions. And I think that can kind of really give them a lot of interesting choices as well. More options, things like special armor, special weapons, special skills, summons. They have quite a few options on that one. They do, however, have only a few subclasses, I believe. So there's not a huge amount of variation there, although they do have cool ones.
Yeah, their subclasses are also extremely different from each other. You have the alchemist that's overall obvious. They can create potions. The armorer is I think your equivalent of Iron Man. Your artillerist is if you want to have a cannon as a sidekick. And then your battlesmith is if you want to have a mech bear as your sidekick. So kind of cool things there. You're right that they are pretty complicated, similar to a lot of, I'd say almost the equivalent of a prepared caster, where they can change up their infusions and some of their features every day. And they have a lot of variety in what they can do. So it's a lot of complication with that. But if you choose to just stick with the same thing, then it lowers their difficulty a bit. Because you can infuse your allies' armor and stuff like that, which is really neat. They also have a few spells here and there that can just make it a little bit easier. They don't really consider to be spellcasters. They have so few spells that you're more or less using cantrips or your tinkerings and stuff. But overall, if you can get a handle on their infusions, and then eventually they can craft items as well, which is really cool because you can create your own bags of holding. You can start crafting decent level magic items and just use them. It's pretty neat.
They also have more potential attuned items that they can have, which sounds silly, but I mean, they can go, I think at 18th level, they can have up to 6 attuned items.
Yep. Double everyone else.
Yeah. Like I cannot imagine how helpful that is in a higher level campaign. I mean, I know our last one that we just wrapped up, it was like a struggle to figure out which only of the 3 that you want to have attuned at any given time. So it sounds simple, but that alone is, number one, really unique to artificers, Ficers, and it's really powerful. But again, it's not, it goes up in stages. You get like an extra one at 10, extra one at 14, extra one at 18. That, I mean, you already mentioned the ability to craft. They're just, honestly, again, I haven't really played them much, but I can fully admit and will say that they are a really well-themed class overall. Very, very different from others and very consistent with their own thing.
Some of their little features are really neat too, of the base class. I really liked Flash of Genius. At 7th level, you can add your intelligence modifier to someone else's ability check or saving throw as a reaction if they're within 30 feet of you. and you can do it as many times per day as your modifier is, which is crazy because at some point your intelligence mod is as an artificer is going to be really like a lot.
Yeah.
So you can basically just be like, oh, I'm going to bump your save like 6-7 points. That's really powerful.
When my Artificer was helping another character who literally had intelligence of 6, and he was pretty dumb, but my character thought he was like Superman in a sense and thought that his dumbness was just like he can't be bothered to say read a book or something. And I loved using Flash of Genius to further that, because whenever he would make a check, I add my modifier. Well, how do I add my modifier? I'd be like, oh, well, what about this thing that you read? And he's like, oh, yeah, I did read that, didn't I? Or something.
Oh, I see. And this whole campaign, you've been calling me an enabler.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know how to enable when the character calls for it. But yeah, so Flash of Genius was really cool to add the flavor of it to other people too, and to kind of spout out the intelligence really.
And they get even more plus to saves, again, in a very unique way. At level 20, they get +1 to all of their saves for each magic item they have attuned.
Yeah.
So they can go up to 6 magic items attuned. They can get basically at level 20 +6 to every save, which is really crazy. And they even have a fake death that is proc.
Yep.
Like whenever they go below 0, they can basically sacrifice an infusion they currently have. And I don't believe it has a cooldown, so I think they could potentially keep doing it for as long as they have any infusions.
Yeah. What's kind of fun about that too is as like an artificer dies and he starts burning the infusions to get back up, if you're infusing the party one by one, their magic items are no longer infused and they're like, what's happening? It's like, I keep going down. You need to save me quick.
Oh, that's so much to track, but it also is like really fun chaos.
Yeah. Again, they're very complicated because of how much they can spread their features to everyone else, especially as like a baseline. Like most classes, like, yeah, they could do a heal and things like that. This is no, I'm going to infuse this item that could theoretically be for the rest of the campaign, and you've now have it. And that's one of my features for you. So it's a unique character or class that can do something like that no one else can. And then that's why I like them as a support as well. If you didn't want to go in infusing yourself and your armor and being this kind of Iron Man, is that you can make everyone else, War Machine.
That would be so cool to just have like a whole party of War Machine barbarians.
Yeah. And the one artificer who's buffing them.
Yeah, just one. And it's like a gnome or something.
Mine was a gnome.
Somebody tiny.
But yeah, and their hit die is respectable at a D8. They get, some pretty good proficiencies. Surprisingly, Thieves' Tools, which I thought was really cool with them. I actually used that a lot on my Artificier. But then they also have, of course, Tinker's Tools. Like, how could you not? And you can still choose another one. So they have, theoretically, one of the most amount of tool proficiencies, I think, out of any other class. So they can help out with a lot of things and still have since they can choose another tool, they have their own flavor tool rather than just Tinkers and Thieves' Tools, which I think my Tinker's Tools was the briefcase, because the briefcase had all the tools in it, but then also like shot acid out the side or something.
I do think it'd be funny if you had an Artificer rogue and they were just sitting there tinkering with their Thieves' Tools. Something sneaks up on them thinking they're going to, get the best of them. And they suddenly just turn around and shank them with sneak attack or something. You're like, I'm busy working on stuff. Leave me alone.
We don't really talk about magic items a lot with the classes that we've been talking about, but one of the coolest flavored magic items is for artificers, and I don't remember what the item is called. I think it's like tools for the job or something like that. And the tool, I think every day you can change the tool to be a different tool. So it could be a carpenter's tool, then it's a blacksmith tool, and you're automatically proficient in it. So if someone's like, oh
my
we need
God.
this thing, it's like, oh, wait, give me till tomorrow or whatever, and I can do that. And it's usually like a +1 or +2. So it's an added really cool flavor that I would just almost default always get as an artificer, because that's so cool to just further your literal toolkit.
That is the coolest D&D item I've ever wanted for my real life immediately.
Right?
Because like when we were remodeling the house, I had to buy so many power tools I didn't want to store in my garage. It would be so nice if you could just have one tool that changed into whatever other tool every day. Oh my God, that would be life changing.
It's literally called the all-purpose tool. You'd like this for you Doctor Who fans, but it's the all-purpose tool, which is just a simple screwdriver, and it's as an action you can transform the item, and I think you can do that once a day.
That's my literal fantasy.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
you can literally go up to something and go, oh, we need this kind of tool. It's like, oh, well, here, I got this, and then you transform it into whatever kind of tool you want.
Speaking of literal fantasy, let's talk about bards. I say that because they're a quintessential fantasy staple character as well. We talked about the ranger being just sort of an icon of fantasy, but bards also, even in the D&D movie that came out last year, was, the main character was a bard, even though I don't think he was a leveled bard, right? He just played music. But they're often the group's core personality. They're the performers, the entertainers, but they get a lot of, they're very powerful with their spell list, but they also, get some sort of loving flack from the participants of the game for falling into certain stereotypes a lot of the time. And Tuki, you've played a bard now a few times.
I don't like him.
And not once sung.
You don't like it.
It's the class I've played the most times, and I don't like him.
And yet, look how you ended up.
Dead? Torn apart?
True.
In a state of being that's not alive or dead. No, I have played Bard actually quite a lot, and I've paired it a lot with things too, just having paired it with Rogue. But no, I've had like a weird up and down with them. I have started to see, especially in the high level part of this last campaign we started doing, I really started coming into understanding the power / usefulness of the Bard spells and everything. So my attitude has changed a little bit towards them over time. But they are an interesting class in general, though. A little bit of a lower hit die. I don't think they can do medium or heavy armor. I think they only have light armor. They obviously could be very performance based or charisma based, music based. There's a lot of different ways to do it theme wise, but yeah, I was mostly, or in the past, I've used it more as a bolster of other skills. Yeah, what about you guys? What's your experiences here?
None. However, while you don't need to be a charismatic person or have like a good singing voice or whatever to be a bard, there is almost feels like something's lost when you're not being a face person with a bard, because they are all about the charisma and talking and basically just the charisma. That is mostly what they're about. So even stereotypically, as you've said, and I think you've had some fun ideas.
Yeah, I had a fun idea once where, because I don't necessarily always know what to say in like the charismatic character situations, I feel sometimes like if I make a character that has a really high charisma stat, I myself mess up their encounters because I am not smooth enough, right? Or as smooth as they would be. So I did have a build for a bard that my idea was going to be essentially a child that just was refusing to talk and only played the lute. And I was going to only communicate. She was a College of Whispers bard. She was only going to communicate with psychic communication to people that she decided that she would trust. But in the meantime, to the party, she would only use the lute. And I like bought a recorder and like learned a few things. And I was going to literally play her as though her speech was essentially the same as like R2D2.
Ah.
So that like everybody in the party would have like their own whistle as their name and things like that, where like it wouldn't be like a full language, but they would understand certain things she was trying to say. And then I could like whisper text telepathic communication to people that she wanted to use words. So there are other ways, like depending also on your subclass, because that was like a darker subclass and a darker backstory for her. But like there are other ways to like translate the performance without having to like sing or dance or whatever. And I thought basically speaking in whistles would be fun.
That's interesting to try to be a mute bard, which could work. I think I actually just recently, for everybody really, emphasized that you don't need to actually speak in as your character to emphasize what you want. I think speaking in third person and stuff can be just as effective, saying my character says something charismatic and he's trying to persuade this person. You don't need to try to figure out the words to persuade someone. Just let's do the check and see. Not everyone is charismatic, so, or even can think of the words. I tend to fumble a lot as well. So it helps to emphasize what your character wants to do without having to think of the words to get that across. I think that would help out a lot with bard players, especially.
Yeah, I mean, and bards do have an interesting kit. Speaking of some of the skills they have, I mean, the bardic dice itself is a good one. You know, obviously it can be used on yourself to give you a boost, but you could also use it on other people to give them boosts to, I think it's checks and attacks and saves. And it goes up, of course, as they level. There's a kind of a minor one, the Song of Rest, but that actually can be really useful, especially in a group that happens to have characters that benefit from short rests a lot. It basically gives them an extra...
Warlocks, monks.
Yeah. I mean, it basically gives them an extra hit die at the if they roll any hit die. So it seems small, but can make a big difference if you're doing consistent short rests. And they even have the ability, this one I actually enjoyed quite a lot in my last playthrough with one, but they can take spells from other classes at higher levels. I think it's like every 4 starting at 10 or something, or 8. And it's kind of a minor thing, but you know, for me, my character was going through some things that were somewhat warlock inspired, I guess, in a sense. So I started using those to take warlock spells, which was just really cool from a flavor aspect, but also in general could be a really good like flexibility standpoint. And then one other point I had on them was that they have a lot of charm, styles of charm. The subclasses add some too, but even just natural ones base ones get a few different ways to charm others and potentially counter charm. The only issue I have, I guess, with their counter charm is that they have to actively be doing it. So even high level bards, I think unless you're a specific subclass, are not immune to charm. I kind of always feel like they should be at a certain point because they're like charm masters themselves. But yeah, minor issue, I suppose.
I like the idea of the counter charm. Like they're not, I'm trying to think of a character that is almost always is super charming, but also succumbs to it the same way. Cause you know, you'll always find someone that's like, oh my God, she's so beautiful, or man, that guy is really hot or something. But with bards, I think one of the fun things about them too is that they can be one of the most fun ways to flavor in the easiest way that almost anyone can get. You did it with Vicious Mockery, which everyone should have Vicious Mockery being something flavored because it's just a fun spell. But you would call them types of food. Like you're a spaghetti roll and then, you know, would deal the damage. You could have pop culture songs as I sing Baby One More Time as my song of rest or something. And it'd be hilarious and fun. Everyone gets a laugh and stuff. And that's a great addition to be able to do that. Yes, anyone can do it, but their class is built around that. So it's not necessarily random. It's like, no, this is how I'm doing my spells is I am singing, oops, I did it again.
But like the Jack Black version.
Yeah, exactly. And afterwards, I talk about Bowser.
I was going to say, you create food and water and you're like, peaches.
Oh, no.
I love it.
I sang that the last time I went to karaoke.
Yeah, and their subclasses are overall revolved around all sorts of things, whether it's creation, just fabricating items. They do have their own melee version with swords, which is pretty cool. I think Valor has some version of that.
Yes. A little inspiration focused, yeah.
Yeah, and then you did Whispers, I believe, which also ended up having a little bit of a melee focus to it too. Then you have like Glamour and Eloquence, which has the flair of it. So they do have some cool options that aren't just bard singing or dancing or something.
Yeah, and I know, Ginger, you mentioned that your bard was Whispers too. So my last one was, and it was paired with Rogue. And I didn't necessarily intend this from the beginning, but it sort of turned into a One Punch Man style build. because I would essentially go in, and I was a swashbuckler rogue, so I could go in, sneak attack somebody one-on-one, and get, especially at the end at level 17, it was 9d6 sneak attack damage, and I would throw a psychic blades onto it using a bardic dice, and that would be another 8d6. So it was 17d6, plus I had a weapon doing 3d6. Like, it got a little crazy towards the end, but even without crits, I could easily potentially do like 100 damage or something if everything rolled decently. So yeah, that was a little bit unexpected from that, but I did enjoy it a lot. And yeah, you mentioned the other subclasses too. A lot of the other ones tend to be focused on a few different aspects. I know, like, yeah, glamours and boosting. Eloquence is also boosting their words, but a little more, I think, themselves, and they can talk to anyone too. Lore is an interesting one because it gives them quite a bit of extra proficiencies and information. And then, yeah, you mentioned swords and valor can be, melee ones. Whispers kind of turned into a melee one. Creation, I don't know too much about, other than they have like motes that they make, and they can animate objects, I think, by performing, which is definitely unique too. Well, we just talked about Artificer, so maybe that one's a little bit Artificer inspired.
Excuse me, Artificer, please.
Artificer.
Yeah, come on, man. We're fancy in this podcast.
Are we?
She could also very well be a rogue. I'm thinking like Arya Stark. When I think of like a bard swordsman who their fighting style is a dance performance, and that's how they attack. It could very well be a rogue. Rogues are very similar to bards, which is why they have a lot of overlap, and why in the D&D movie a lot of people thought he was more of a rogue than a bard, because rogues can also have the tools and musical instruments and stuff. So
yeah, and they can also be somewhat charismatic as well. Like, they have, high deception and all that kind of stuff. They can put on good performances. But most people tend to fall into the sort of seductive, like the bard is like the lover stereotype. So you have your lovers, but then you also have your fighters.
I've never done the lover stereotype bard. I refuse.
Fighters.
Yeah, we know. We know, Tukey. We know. But what about a fighter?
Yeah.
What about a fighter? Oh, me?
You were a rogue, but like obviously you have a fighter soul, right?
Okay, she was kind of a bruiser, so a little bit of the swashbuckler in her. No, yeah, fighters. I feel like I say this about every class, but it is kind of another classic D&D class. Some similarities to barbarian, but a little more focus on the fighting styles that you choose for it.
A little more tactical.
Yeah, a little more tactical. They're pretty beefy or tanky. I think they have a D10 hit die, all armors, shields. But yeah, the fighting style is good. And there's obviously other classes that can get them too, rangers, and just talked about bards. The sword bards can get fighting styles, but the fighting style itself can really set you apart, or help you with your theme for your fighter. And there's a lot there, and they're not just melee. I know there's even an archery based fighting style too. So yeah, fighters can be flexible. They're not, even though probably people think of melee ones, you don't have to just be melee. Or if you are, you could be sort of a protector. You could be a great sword wielder, a one-handed wielder.
You can even be an arcane archer, which is arguably better than a ranger until 1D&D comes out, and rangers are amazing.
Yeah.
I think that probably as far as flavoring or getting inspiration for a character goes, fighter is like the easiest one to pull from pop culture, right? There's so many different types. Like you could be like, all right, I want to be like
John Wick.
Yeah, like you could pick styles. Like to me, I know Tukey and I have talked about this before, like specific choreography always sticks in my head from films, right? So like that knife fight scene in the prison hallway in the Daredevil season 2, like the Punisher season.
Oh, so good.
It's like sick, right? Like I just said that to you and you immediately know what I'm talking about. Like it would be amazing to have a fighter that was like, be like, when I say I'm proficient with a blade, that is what I mean, and that visual comes into your head. Or like, yeah, John Wick is a great example. In John Wick 3, the dog sequence where Halle Berry's character is like fighting with the 2 Malinois, like so cool. So there's all different types, or more of like a sort of base martial arts style, even though, you typically kind of think of that as being a monk thing, but you could be like an Ip Man style character, or, there's so many different fighting styles and ways. You could just pick like Leonidas or, anybody really from so many different amazing films, and then draw from that to like describe what you're doing as you fight. I think Randy, you've said before, but Liam's character for campaign 3 for Critical Role, Orem, is a great example of how you can describe moves in D&D combat to make it feel equivalent, right, to the other character's flavor level. Because I think it's really easy for a caster to be like, all right, when I cast my Eldritch Blast, it looks like snakes and it comes out and it's like this sickly green energy. And you're like, whoa, like, because magic is so flashy, right? But Liam does such a good job of describing like the movements Orem makes and like the strikes and how the fight will flow. And it's honestly just as if not sometimes even more impressive.
Yeah, and you don't even have to describe your spells. The fact that you have so many spells and they do so many different things is flavor all in itself, while normally you go, well, I attack again, and that's pretty much all most characters, especially martial characters, can have. So having Liam showing that it can be this cool flavor that people who just say I cast Firebolt aren't actually providing the flavor. They're just, oh, now I'm casting Frostbite. That sounds different. Wow. But they're not actually emphasizing how they're casting and stuff. So Liam with Fighter, amazing. I also like that they can tend to emphasize a lot more of the other styles with the subclasses, because they can be a wizard fighter. They could be the arcane archer, which, like I said, is super cool. They've got the rune knight, which gets the runic powers of a giant. They could be champions or battle masters, which battle master should have been base subclass, but battle master is able to have a lot more flavor and flexibility into their fighting styles in general, which luckily coming up in a little while soon, everyone will have a little bit more flavor to their melee attacks, and I'm excited for that.
Hey, I'm just going to go back to what you were saying about attacking a lot, because there's nothing wrong with just swinging a lot, especially if you're a fighter and you have 3 attacks and you action search, and then you're just attacking for days.
And now you have 6 attacks. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't even matter what they look like, because they're just constantly happening.
And the DM laughs until he realizes you've just done 100 damage, and he's like, how did this happen?
Where did my enemies go?
In one of our campaigns where I was Rin the half Minotaur, the DM found out that I could hit pretty hard too when I action surge, and he was like, he found out that I needed to be a pretty big focus of who can dish out damage as well.
And that one was the Eldritch Knight one too, right? So you could, oh, not Eldritch, Echo.
Echo Knight.
Echo Knight, yeah. So you could switch places with your Echo and attack, or it can attack. And
yeah. The Echo can do an additional attack when I use the attack action. So if I action surge, I can do it twice. So the 3 attacks, the action surge, 6 attacks with 2 extra attacks. Now it's 8 attacks. What up?
I mean, honestly, that the thing with with fighters is that they do come across simple and friendly for beginners as well, but because of a lot of the subclasses abilities with them, and the ability to action surge, second wind, all of that, they can get more complicated in really cool ways. I mean, we kind of already mentioned some of these.
Complicated.
Yes, 100%. And it's, again, maybe you might think of a fighter and you're like, oh, just some like bruiser swinging at things, but it's 100% doesn't have to be. And, you have the arcane archer. We just talked about Echo Knight, Eldritch Knight. There's a Psi Warrior, which is essentially like a psychic damage based fighter, which is really cool. The Rune Knight.
The Samurai.
I mean, there's a ton of different theming with it. I know for myself, when I'm trying to think of what classes I want to play or combine, a lot of it tends to be the theme I'm looking for. And yeah, fighters definitely offer quite a bit of flexibility and customizing, even though they feel a little simpler and more friendly.
I think it further emphasizes what Ginger said too, that there's so many references in pop culture about fighters, and their subclasses really reflect that. They pretty much almost go from the standard fighter being a battle master or champion to going sci-fi with psychic or wizardry and stuff like that, which
Oh
neat.
my
I
God,
like it.
Randy, can we do a StarCraft based campaign? I want to be, I want to be a Zerg, but all their races are really
I
fun.
mean, I'm not against that. I would like to have Kerrigan as a potential big bad. That'd be pretty cool.
She's my dream cosplay.
She is amazing.
The Queen of Blades. That's a fighter right there.
I've heard of her. Who said I haven't heard of her? I've heard of her.
Good job. We're proud of you. She's this really cool hybrid human ghost operative that turned into a weird, creepy alien bug thing that has just blades coming out of her everywhere. You'd love her.
Wait, Silica?
Actually, maybe that's what you're going to end up looking like.
Maybe.
Great.
Oh my God, Silica comes back as Kerrigan. That's terrifying. I do not want to meet her in a future campaign.
Randy, make it happen.
Maybe. I'll get on that.
I will pledge my allegiance to her immediately. I'll just be like, my queen has arrived. Gotta go.
Maybe I'll do it just so I have one of the player characters on my side immediately then.
Yep.
Ooh.
I will do it.
I pledge allegiance to Kerrigan.
The Queen of Blades. She has a whole title. No, I love her, but yeah, that would be super fun. I like the idea of like the psionic, like the Protoss warrior too would be really fun. I just love StarCraft.
Fighters are cool, though. I mean, they really do have a whole host of different skills, including magic. Not a ton of magic, but they do have some.
I prefer the thought of just being intrinsically born with magic. I just always wanted to be special, like a cosmic sugar baby, and that brings us to sorcerers.
They remind you of cosmic sugar babies?
Yep. That's what the internet calls them. If you were on the internet, you would know.
While bards get a bad reputation of being the ones who would bang a dragon, sorcerers are just as likely to bang said dragon.
Yeah.
What?
Super charisma base, usually less, I would say, happy. I mean, they could definitely be happy, but bards are usually always pictured as like the happy bard, while sorcerers are these dark and powerful entities.
Sad, tortured, cursed lineage type characters.
Yeah,
What?
I was born this way.
For the record, I did play an emo bard, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, my character in our current campaign is slowly coming into her sorcerer powers as your character is being tortured in hell.
Except sorcerers are very squishy with their D6s, but they make up with that by being so powerful, as they have one of the best spell lists, despite it being quite small. I think they have arguably one of the smallest spell lists, and their meta magic just allows them to pack such a bunch that you probably ain't getting up after sorcerer attacks.
Yeah, I still maintain that now, after an entire year of playing a character who had access to the Warlock list, switching over to Sorcerer, I was really happy to see that my all-time favorite MVP spell is still on there, Crown of Stars.
Oh, yes.
That is a good one.
If I ever play, I probably am about to play a character that can't get Crown of Stars, and I'm already sad about it. It is the best spell ever. It's my favorite. I love everything about it, and everyone should have it. Except not everyone should have it, just I should have it. I like having it.
Yeah, I'll start having a lot of NPCs have it too. That way you guys go into battle, they're all having these crowns on their head. You go, oh no, and I go, oh yes, and just start blasting.
So anyway, I started blasting. Speaking of started blasted, I was sitting down and looking at this sorcerer spell list because she's, becoming a sorcerer, and I was looking at how much damage you could conceivably do with a 9th level magic missile. And it was a lot. It was over 100 if you max, if you crit on a 9th level magic missile, it was over 100 damage. But the insane thing about magic missile is there's no roll to hit and there's no save. It just hits.
Yeah, people underestimate upcasting.
Yeah, I was like, wow, how much would that be if I just got super pissed one day and just launched I can't even remember how many it was. It was like 11, I think, bolts is max. 11 bolts, 11 magic missiles. It's like that's also some Iron Man stuff, like the little shoulder cannon that pops up and just launches a bunch of seeker missiles. That's basically the same thing. So fun.
Can't you also twin spell it? Or can that not be twin spelled?
It can only target one creature. So I believe Guiding Bolt can.
With Magic Missile, you can target only one creature or you can choose multiple targets. So I guess that would be a DM call on if you only targeted one creature or not.
It's specific that the spell can only target
be a one target spell.
The spell has to target one creature, so like a fireball and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they have a lot of other good ones too. They still have, like I said, Crown of Stars. They still have the Guiding Bolt. They still have True Strike, Ray of Frost, and there are a bunch of elemental type ones as well. But the biggest one, I think, for the meta magic, my two favorites are
Quicken, easy.
Yeah, Quicken for sure to turn something into a bonus action. And then I actually really enjoyed playing around with Subtle. Yes. Subtle spell is not necessarily always the most useful thing in combat, but it also can be if you have something you want to cast that you do not want a chance of it getting countered to Subtle spell. But outside of combat, when interacting with NPC challenges, it's the best. It's like, you're in the throne room and the king is like asking you a bunch of questions and, you want to cast charm, but you don't want the guards to hear you, or, there's so many cool applications for Subtle spell in like the rest of the campaign setting.
I'm getting flashbacks now because I could have just escaped a certain situation in the Hells if I didn't get counterspelled when I tried the Dimension Door.
Yeah.
Yep.
That Subtle would have been really helpful.
I may have mentioned this before, but I had one of my characters try to help cheat in an arena type battle by casting a spell, but I used Subtle spell. And while there was something like an anti-magic field around it, so like it didn't work, whatever, but I didn't get caught because I Subtle spelled, which was super cool. But you can also use it in combat depending on how you really want to play, because sometimes people want to attack the caster. You're usually the most dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And also the most squishy. So while, they see someone's flinging fireballs, it's like, okay, we need to get that person. That person's dangerous. If you Subtle spell a lot of the spells, they're like, where the crap are these fireballs coming from all of a sudden? And, you could be hiding behind a barrel or something. They don't even know where you are.
Yeah, or if you had like greater invisibility or something and paired it with a bunch of of stuff, that would be pretty fun.
Oh yeah, just stood perfectly still and cast like psychic abilities that don't leave a trail.
With distance, so you're like 2 miles away from the battle.
Yeah, and I was an aberrant mind, so psychic was my forte. Although Divine Soul, having the entire priest spell list for a sorcerer is so powerful paired with meta magic that I am amazed that exists.
That's why when we were talking about our post-campaign wrap-up and I was looking at the sorcerer spells for Domino, I was like, actually pairing like level 20 amounts of sorcery points with a level 20 war cleric is kind of terrifying. Like the biggest problem with the war cleric spell list, or the cleric spell list at all, but also like the war cleric abilities, was always the action economy, right? Like I had too many things that were actions, and being able to quicken half my cleric spells, I was like, that's scary for everyone. Like she could just do a lot of damage with that. And you can also pair it with the meta magic adept feat so that no matter how powerful of a sorcerer you are, you always have 2 extra categories in your pocket just for funsies.
The subclasses of Sorcerer are honestly just some of the coolest sounding. Whoever thought of the names for him obviously did a very good job. But Randy, you already mentioned Aberrant Mind. There's Clockwork Soul, Draconic Bloodline, Divine Soul, Lunar Sorcery, Storm Sorcerer. I mean, they got some cool names. And they all do pretty interesting things as well with the theme of their magic. So Clockwork is pretty interesting because it's focused on like balance and law and order, and it's kind of a unique one there.
The mechanisms of the universe.
Yeah, I know. I was what was I just looking at the other day? It was like you can have like spectral cogs or summoned around you or something, and there's definitely a lot of different ways you can you can take it. And then Divine Soul, so you were speaking of, like war clerics, but Divine Soul is sort of a bit cleric-like, and you can get some interesting benefits there from that, and even a new form.
Yeah, they get the whole cleric spell list.
Can you twin spell Revivify?
Bring back everybody.
That would be crazy if like a bunch of people went down and you could just like twin spell.
I don't think so.
Well, you can twin spell a heal, right? And it still only has one target.
Yeah.
Revivify only has one target.
Yeah, it was the range I was looking at, but it's range of touch, not self.
It consumes a
You have 2 hands?
component. Yeah, you do have 2 hands. But would you have to have double diamonds?
You might not, but...
Or would it just automatically like boost? That's tricky, I guess.
Actually, I think you could revivify with twin spell. Like it only is it's one target, which revivify is range touch. It's not self. So yeah, I would probably rule that you could. To be honest, there's nothing around it. The only thing is the material components, which it doesn't say that it can't have a material cost.
Oh, that would have saved me money.
So you kind of save yourself in double revivify.
That would have saved me so much money during
the
invasion. Just walk around and be like, boop, boop.
More
boop.
than one person's going to die.
I mean, then again, so would the new divine intervention save you some money too.
Yeah. Also, the new divine, well, we'll talk about that in a different week.
I also think a cool feature with the sorcerers is they don't have patrons and stuff like that, but they can come from a patron or a deity or something. Like you could be a draconic bloodline of Tiamat or something. It'd be super cool, and it could have no significance, but you could also be like trying to find your ancestry or where your powers come from. It could be a whole campaign in itself just from your origins subclass. I think it's actually really neat because not a lot of them can have that. You can do that with warlocks and, of course, like the other ones that are a little more obvious. But this one has a little more flavor added on that it's not necessarily even really directly related with them. Like they may not even know you exist. While typically the warlocks and the clerics, like their deities kind of know in some way of the existence of their subordinates.
This would kind of be more like it, Zeus banged everything and he's got 4 million kids.
Yeah.
Like your sorcerer is Percy Jackson, right? Like you become a different.
And that's why I'm a storm sorcerer.
Yeah. I mean, I guess his dad was Poseidon. Spoilers. But, but
I don't think we talked about wild magic yet. And wild magic is literally, you could be a chaotic character and not have to do anything other than just play your class.
The chaos is built in.
The chaos will happen.
Built in for you.
Yeah, you have some experience with that, huh?
A little bit, yeah.
And soon wild magic will be a little more consistent, which will be even more chaos.
I mean, it'll hit more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say
boy.
It was hilarious because when I first unlocked the wild magic, I was like, oh man, this is going to go so crazy so much. And I was like kind of worried about it because there's a lot of things that can happen on the wild magic table. And we were using a specific, like a Fey table, which was great. But there were things on there that would just take you completely out of a combat entirely. Like there was one that would just teleport you across the world or something. And there was one, like there were just a whole bunch of them that were like, one of them was like your arms turn into vines for an hour and you can't hold a weapon. And it's like, but you have, I always want to call it whip smack. You have grasping vine or whatever. It's like, I do not want to turn into noodle vines for arms and have grasping vine and not be able to hold a weapon when we're fighting freaking Zariel, like that would have really sucked. But the dice, I think, could feel how intensely I was worried about that happening because all of my wild magic for the whole campaign, I feel like hit at the funniest.
It was all flavor.
They were all hit at the funniest times. And they did the funniest things. The only one we never rolled that I really wanted to was all the giant toads appear and like fight for your affection.
You rolled it quite a lot.
Yeah.
It just, it happened to be that you were doing it. It was a lot of like flavor times that you were I guess I'd used magic. So it balanced it out. But you did, because it's not that high of a chance. And yet you still did get a lot of wild
I rolled
magics.
them a lot, yeah. But I never rolled one that hurt someone else. Or that removed me from a situation, which was very possible, actually. Like a lot of the ones on the list could have done that. My favorite, though, I have to talk about my favorite, was we were at Dervante's birthday party, our Owlin monk. We were throwing a birthday party for him, and we were partying with a bunch of gnomes at like essentially a rave. And I rolled I cast something really basic. Oh, I cast Lesser Restoration so we could keep drinking longer. And rolled a 1, and then the wild magic that hit was all of your inner thoughts are repeated extremely loudly by a spectral voice that can be heard for up to 100 feet away. And then Randy spent the rest of the party being like, Domino thinks this. And it was so funny. It was like the worst possible scenario to...
Domino is worried that other people might be hearing her thoughts right now.
Yeah. And it was funny too, because like you could have actually gone really dark with it. She had a lot of high level military secrets that she was paranoid about getting out. She had a lot of like...
Domino's hoping she doesn't find, or you guys don't find out about the secrets like the plan.
Yeah, like Domino doesn't want anyone to know about Sorcerer and stuff. But yeah, like there was a bunch of stuff that could have been way worse about it, but you really just, because it was just a funny like downtime scene, you just played it for humor and it was really funny. But in the scene, she was like freaking out, like, oh no, don't think anything important. Don't think anything important. And it was like, Domino doesn't want to think about anything important. So yeah, that was a really fun one. And then there was one where like you sprout mushrooms all over yourself that for an hour they glow if anyone lies to you. And I rolled that one also just a very funny, like mostly useless but random, like funny time. So some of them I do wish we could have seen. The Battletoads was probably my favorite one on the list that we never got to, but that Fey table was really fun.
It's honestly the worst part about Wild Magic is that you want to see them all. There's too many.
I'm just picturing a Wild Magic sorcerer though who spends like almost their whole life, they just never get one. But the more time goes by, they're just like flinching even harder every time they're about to cast a spell because they're like, I know it's coming. Yeah. But it just never comes and never happens.
Or like then it finally does come and it's literally just a nuke going off. It's like it all got stored up and then it just...
Or bubbles.
Yeah, or it's bubbles.
Or bubbles.
Yeah. Bubbles.
Like honestly, their meta magic is pretty much the staple of them. They don't have a lot else to offer, to be honest, aside from their subclasses are really cool and super flavored. But man, the meta magic changes the game. Almost every caster could benefit from being a sorcerer.
Where do you think their complexity sits compared to some of the other quintessential casters like Wizard or Warlock?
In terms of like power?
No, complexity.
Like playability.
Like how difficult?
I feel like they're probably kind of on the same level as a Warlock.
Yeah, I've actually said before that I think that they're one of the easiest ones. They can't change out their spells similar to, like they're not a prepared caster, which can suck if your DM's not allowing a new player to change out their spells just to figure out the game. But their meta magic offers a lot more power that they don't really need to think about as long as they get a little bit of help with that. Honestly, that's their big complexity is the meta magic, but all their spells are good, so you don't have to go through the entire druid spell list and then you get these cool flavored spells and then realize they have no real good applications and you're like, well, I mean, I guess I can change them out, but I can't figure out good ones. Sorcerers like just pick one. They're all good.
They're all good. Crown of Stars, people. Crown of Stars.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I mean, that's high level, but yeah.
It's like 7.
Yeah, but sorry.
Well, it's a 7th level spell.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm hearing something from the front. Oh God, Ginger says we should do a flash round.
This is the Flash Round, where we take turns creating the bones of a character that anyone can use. If you play one, let us know who they become. Roll initiative.
I'm rolling great. Oh, no, that wasn't good.
Oh, snap, 20.
Oh, you get a 20? I got a 2.
Oh, I got a 2, but my bonus gives me a 3.
See, now I don't know if you're lying or not.
Yeah, me either. Is your bonus just because you're the DM? You get a +1 to everything?
I put a +2 into my dex, guys.
Wait.
I leveled up. Did you guys not level up?
Wait, we leveled? Oh, no.
No. In real life?
Yes, sure.
Randy, what did you actually roll?
Not in years.
I also rolled it too.
Okay, well, someone's got to re-roll.
I'm going to roll again. I got 13.
7.
So I win.
Wow. So for race, we're going to go with a tiefling.
Oh, weird you would pick that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, so you wanted to pick a tiefling because that you feel connected to them in some sort of way. So I feel like it's only right to make them an artificer.
Wait, what?
No. Randy, that is rude.
You're welcome.
I don't understand.
Do you feel disconnected with them, Tukey?
I feel something.
Good. Feel it. Feel it in your heart.
Let the hate flow through you. Well, obviously, if this is how we're going to play this round, the Artificer subclass is going to be Alchemist.
Perfect. Let the potions flow through.
All right.
Yeah, cook us up something fun.
For their appearance, let's go with like a very light purple skin, but their hands, as it kind of goes down their limbs, it sort of becomes like a darkish blue, right? And then up their face as well, it sort of goes into the horns that are also blue, which they have 2 longish kind of horns, right? But their eyes are kind of a vivid yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go shortish hair that's green, just to really throw off the color palette here.
I mean, it helps because while it does identify them, they never gotten caught being the background of a criminal.
Ooh.
I mean, is that
Smooth criminal.
is that a little racist?
A little bit.
Or not? A little bit. A little
A little bit.
bit. Okay, well then, yeah, their personality trait is going to be that they're very smooth. They have extremely high charisma.
Like, oh,
which is a stat and not a trait, but like as a person, they have good. What is it? The kids say, haha, they got good riz.
They have really nice skin.
All right. Well, I feel like, I mean, Randy kind of led this person down the criminal path. So for their ideal,
What?
I'm just going to go with it. So their ideal is what I see, I own.
Take what you can, give nothing back.
It's all yours.
But they have a surprise side where their bond is the friendships they made along the way. So the ones that they work with, they always want to work with again because, I mean, kind of like those guys.
Well, and it's so hard finding good help these days,
Yeah, exactly.
especially in a heist.
Yeah, like you were the tech guy. I know nothing about that.
Flaw is going to be that even though they like to run a crew for their heists and their criminal activities, they're actually not much of a team player. They like to go in first and alone and scope out the situation, and sometimes they don't follow the hacker's instructions. They're the version of they're like the Ethan Hunt that like turns the earpiece off.
Oh,
Just sometimes.
yeah. Who needs the instructions?
Exactly.
Well, for their trinket, then, they're going to have a small picture that they always kind of show to people. They seem very proud of it. They keep saying that they painted it themselves, too. And it's a lone, beautiful picture of a woman named Mona with a very serious face. You're pretty sure they didn't paint it, though.
Oh.
Is she smiling mysteriously?
And for their name, well, I always like tieflings with this sort of a virtuous name. And the reason why they do crime and stuff is to, gain something out of it. So their name is Achievement.
Oh, see? It all came back
Ooh.
around in the end.
Good old mint.
I was going to call her Achieve.
but she's blue and green hair.
Good luck out there, Achieve. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this session and want to hear more, You can find us on Twitter at DisFictionalPod for our latest updates and downloads.
Original music for this podcast is provided by Joshua Silver, the artist known as Dimanon on Spotify.
Now that that's over, I think we could all use a song of rest.